for 15 minutes. Guys, I'm so sorry. Thank you for your commitment and for waiting. I was just taking us through a meditation and realized that I became conscious that I hadn't actually started the broadcast. So hopefully you can see and hear me now. Please just put in the chat box that you can. And I'm so very sorry about that side of things. Okay, just waiting for your comments to come through. Okay, all right. Well, for some reason, we had, okay, so Johnny's saying doesn't think it started yet, Valerie. Yeah, it had, but I was having my own party. I'm really sorry, guys. So hopefully you can see and hear me okay now. And we'll just get straight into it as soon as I know that you have or can hear or see me. Please let me know. Almost 15 minutes late, weird, just refreshed. Nada. Hello, Tiffany, can see and hear you. Thank you. I am so sorry, guys. I was doing the broadcast off air. My apologies. So we'll just get straight into it and we will not mess about, okay? All right. Caroline says, can hear you but can't see you. Right, you seem to be the only one, Caroline. It might be if you're on an iPad or a phone, it doesn't work that well. It's better on a laptop or a PC. All right, well, great. Let's get straight into the meditation, okay? Rather than faff about. So sorry for keeping you waiting, and thank you for your commitment and your patience, okay? So if you would like to sit with your eyes closed and just take a nice deep breath in. And as you breathe out, just release any energy that's been building up, that's been stressful. Let it go down through the earth, down, down, down through the ground. Venus retrograde is very much about looking at ourselves and taking down any defensiveness that we have in our energy fields. And something I have been really aware of this week has been the difference between the pushing and the receiving. That energy has been really tangible for me this week. I've felt like every time I've been pushing, there's this shield that just blocks me from love or receiving or getting anything. It's been really mirrored to me very tangibly. And so whenever I feel that now, and I'm getting very good at feeling when my energy gets like that now, I just shift that into a basic place of, sorry, 1 second, there's a little, no, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so hopefully you're still in the meditation. Okay, sorry about that. So when you're in that place of being pushing, just note what that energy feels like. Does it feel like a shield? Does it block you from getting what it is that you would just like to receive quite nicely and feel connected to? And anywhere that you feel that now, if you just flip that shield so that it becomes a receptacle, in other words, indent it so that it's like a curve coming into your energy. So the biggest, deepest part of the curve is around your heart space. And just breathe that in, just breathe it deeply, deeply in. And just open your space and just allow that space to open up for you. And as you breathe out, just send that energy out to everybody else on the call, both here present and whoever comes across it at whatever time. And just know that that energy right there, that little tip, that little meditation will really help to get you through this summer of love Venus retrograde, which we will talk about in a moment. So just have a little stretch, little deep breath. Okay. So, welcome to Surviving the Summer of Love. We're going to talk about the Venus retrograde. Hopefully you can see a screen which says Venus retrograde in Leo, July the 27th to September the 6th, 2015. Let me know if that's not what you're seeing. It then says, why do we hear so much about Mercury retrograde and not Venus retrograde? Okay, so it's not because it's any less important. It's just that Mercury retrograde happens a lot more often. That's why it always feels like Mercury is retrograde. Okay, Venus retrograde happens once every year and a half. Mercury retrograde happens 3 times a year. So what does Venus retrograde mean? Well, if we look at Venus, she's known as the planet of love. And if we look at the other side of Venus, she's also known as the planet of war, okay? And then when you think of the word retrograde, it basically says that there is an internalization of that energy. So there's an internalization of love and war going on this summer. We may have a little bit of a heart tug or a push me, pull you energy on a very basic level, but it goes deeper than this. And before I go into that, there are a few comments saying, saw you before, but can only hear you now. However, everyone else seems to be okay. So if you've got problems, just try refreshing and that should be fine. Okay. All right, so what does Venus retrograde in Leo mean? Well, Venus retrograde in Leo basically means massive things to do with the heart, right? Because Leo rules the heart. So there's a lot here to do with courage, a lot here to do with pride, a lot here to do with vulnerability and defense and all of those types of things. Now, even though it says it doesn't start until July the 27th, it does actually build up earlier than that. I think it began a couple of days ago or so that the energy started to get strong, a bit like Mercury retrograde finished in June the 11th. But to be honest, the last 2 weeks for me have been maybe some of the craziest ever. And that's saying something. I mean, everything's just been totally uncontrollable, which has been kind of good in a way, because when it's really like that, it's like it really just allows you not to take things seriously and let things go and just know that we're not in control, which is maybe why I've also been really aware of this. Is my force field being a shield or is it being a receptacle? So let's look at this a little bit more, shall we? So now you should see Venus retrograde, and there should be an infinity symbol and a funny little picture on it. So let's look at the Venus retrograde in Leo, yeah? So in the tarot, Leo is the number 8. The number 8 looks like the infinity symbol, which represents that inner strength is always there, no matter what we go through. Our essence within our body never ends, as well as the karmic cycle of giving out and getting back. Okay, so this picture, if you are seeing it on the left there, was the start of a tarot card that I never really finished. But I felt like sharing that with you because I feel like it's trying to communicate or convey the energy of strength. The energy of strength is really this kind of knowing that you will continue no matter what happens, just like this infinity symbol here. There's a part of you that just will always shine, that always has the light, and that has this life force energy. Even when we die, we are ad infinitum. This energy continues, and in that way, we are never ending. Okay, so basically, this is what this Venus retrograde in Leo is talking about, is kind of getting to the heart of the matter and helping us to see that, you know, our strength in our hearts isn't about being defensive. It's about knowing that whatever kind of happens to us, we will live through. And how we live through that is very much down to us. And do we live through that with a grace, or do we live through that with destruction? Back to this force field that I was talking about. Do we live through it in terms of resistance and actually blocking ourselves, or do we live through it in a way where we relax and we just open rather than shrinking? And the only way I can say it is being a little bit like your energy force field shrinks and pushes forward. When it's like that, that's the kind of stuff that Venus retrograde will be working with you on. Yeah, so wherever you feel that over this summer, it's showing you that the internal work is needing to happen there. So the way to kind of shift that is to just go, my energy's just contracted and has started to push forward, and it's like a shield. So I'm just going to flip that shield now. I'm just going to expand my energy, and I'm just going to receive. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to open up and receive. And that's the journey of Venus retrograde. It's about knowing that we don't have to make things happen. It's more like a stripping away rather than a building up. Okay, so let's move on. Venus retrograde and the journey in Leo. The 17th card is the star. So I'm talking about the tarot still, and you're probably like, why on earth is she talking about the star? But bear with me. So the star is pictured with 8 pointed stars all around her, which is really important for how this screen share presentation finishes. So just bear with that and keep that there. If you add the numbers 1 and 7, you get 8. So as you can see, there's a lot to do with 8 going on. And 8 is the number of infinite strength. Lay out the 22 major arcana cards of the tarot in a circle, and you will find strength opposite the star. The star is ruled by Aquarius, which the opposite sign of Leo. All opposing signs share similar qualities. Aquarius and Leo share the ability to shine their light in the world and trust their path of creation and divinity, but wound them and they can become cut off, eccentric, infuriating, erratic. Okay, so there is the dark side, basically, to Venus, yes? She is like Mother Earth in a way, you know, so her wrath is something very powerful indeed. All right, so there is always the dark and the light. Let's have a look at this now. Some say the glyph of Venus is that of a mirror. And if you think mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, it can be shown as a sign of vanity. And if you think of Venus, there is that kind of vain or superficial aspect related to the fact that she's also related to beauty. Yeah, so again, there's the dark and the light. Others say that it represents the spirit coming onto the cross of matter, pregnancy and birth into the world. So the circle is the spirit, yeah, coming in. You could see that as the pregnant tummy. And then the cross is the world there. Okay. And if you look at the tarot again, the Empress is the pregnant woman, yeah? And the Empress is ruled by Venus, okay? So Leo is the creator of the zodiac, but it can become pompous and self-righteous, forgetting that the creativity bestowed upon them is a God-given gift. So here we see in full glory the curse of the Venusian aspects of the mirror and the creation, yeah, the vanity side of things. So this summer, you know, you could be really triggered of being like very much in that vain space, you know, a bit like maybe you feel undervalued or underappreciated by someone, or you think somebody's being selfish, when really it just shows in the mirror that you are the one that is allowing that to happen to you, i.e. you're not filling up your own needs, which is why you're being triggered by somebody who's selfish. You are not appreciating yourself, which is why you feel undervalued. So basically, it's a very strong internal journey, the Venus retrograde, into the heart of the matter of who we are, why we feel the way we do, why certain people trigger us in the way that they do, etc. Okay. So Venus is also the goddess Inanna in the ancient Babylonian mythology. Inanna, a bright queen, is sister to, if I can say it, Ereshkigal. Sounds impressive, but I don't think I said it right. Queen of the underworld, who is holding Inanna's husband. Inanna has to face her dark sister side if she is to reclaim her love, so makes her descent into hell, i.e. Venus retrograde, because that's what Venus does. She disappears and goes into the underworld, I think for 14 nights, which represents the passage of when Jesus was lost in the desert with the devil for 40 nights, and the devil was just tempting him with absolutely everything. That's also a Venus retrograde. So she does her underworld stint quite regularly, and she's known for that. So you can also see this period as being tempted. The Venusian energies may well be tempting you very strongly. So during her journey down the underworld, Ereshkigal serves her several initiations. And basically these initiations are stripping away. She has to remove her crown, she has to remove her shield, she has to remove her scepter, she has to remove her jewelry, she has to remove the things that are protecting her breasts and her heart, everything. She has to strip away everything to the point where she is stood absolutely naked, totally vulnerable in front of her sister, and then her sister hangs her on a meat hook. And you're probably there thinking, what's the point of that? But it's actually when the worst has really happened that you realize that actually that still is, you know, there's nothing more that can actually keep you in any place of fear. It only gives you strength. So that's not the end of the story. Something happens where Inanna is kind of brought back to life and actually has way more than she ever had before. So she gets her husband back, and it's a love marriage, far more than it ever was before that initiation. It's a fascinating story, and you may have read the whole side of it because this kind of PowerPoint came from the blueprint on the Venus retrograde when you signed up. So the whole story is in there. Okay. So let's move on. So just in case you need more convincing that Venus retrograde is about the infinite strength of 8, Venus's orbit tracks out the shape of a pentagram in the sky. The pentagram or the pentacle in the tarot governs self-worth and our values. Basically, that's what Venus governs as well. So every 8 years, Venus draws out another point on the pentagram. 8 years ago was the last time Venus retrograded in Leo, the sign of the 8th tarot card and the 8th month of the year. The sign of the heart and the courage to show vulnerability, which is completely what Venus retrograde is about. Okay, so let's move on. So Venus retrograde in Leo happened 8 years ago. So it's good for you to think about 8 years ago, what was going on for you then. And just trying to think, yeah, so it must have been about, 2007, 2006, 2007, if my maths is correct. 2006. So for me, I'm a Leo, and in 2006 I had a really strong time of closing my business, being homeless, and coming out of a long-term relationship with my business partner, all in the space of a week. So I closed my shop. I had a shop. It all went boom, and now it feels to me like I'm in a similar place, not quite the same, but there is definite huge ructions of change going on. And I went for a reading yesterday, actually, quite funnily enough. And those of you that know the tarot probably laugh. The lady was pulling them out, and it was the 5 of Wands, the 9 of Swords, the 10 of Wands. And she was just like, with everyone, the devil. And she was just like, my gosh, I don't know what it is you're going through, but there's just so much. And it really feels like that. But it feels great at the same time. It feels like it's a purge, really, really, really deep inner purge of making sure that the things that aren't working are being released big time. So when I think back, that's where I was around that time. And if you think back to where you were around that time and see if there is any bearings on where you are now or any repetitiveness on where you are now. The other thing for me was, and probably will be for you, was when Venus went retrograde in 2012, because it actually transited over the sun, which was the first time in, I think, 115 years that it did that. So it had even more power in 2012, and it was around June. It was around this time, May, June, that it happened, and it really brought a lot of past life lovers back into our lives, who played a big part of our journey throughout the whole Grand Cross, which is only just breaking up now, the Cardinal Grand Cross. So the last year, that Cardinal Grand Cross has been kind of breaking up more and more. And now I think we're at that place where this Venus retrograde is just completely kind of tying up whatever the story has been since June 2012 as well. Okay, so let's move on. All right, now you're going to see me, okay? Because we're going to start the Astro Tarot channel part. All right, this is where we do the general reading for the month. And then whatever time you have left over, you can have a question each. And sometimes I can do that whole question. You know, I can basically, sorry, I've been so all over the place for a couple of weeks, it's hard to talk. So basically what I'm saying, or I'm trying to say, is you can send a question in when I say, okay, now it's time for your questions. It is a first come, first serve basis, basically. So I don't always get round to everybody's, but it is just basically a 1 minute taster. And, you know, if you want more afterwards, we can look at ways that can happen for you. Okay. So you're now going to see my bad hair day. You know, I feel like I've been pulled. Well, actually maybe pulled and pushed through a hedge backwards the last 2 weeks. I've been hiding behind the PowerPoint, but now the great revelation now. So how do I get you back? How do I get you back and say hello properly? Let's have a look. Hello. I'm here. I'm not just a talking PowerPoint. I am actually a human being. Nice to, well, I can't see you, but nice to know that you can see me. Happy Sunday. Thank you for joining me. My name is Tiffany, and I do these every month, although I don't know. I'm still not committed every single month at the moment. This might be the last one. I'm not quite sure yet. They've been a bit stop and start, these things. So not necessarily every month. This could be the last one, but generally speaking, we do a general and we look at the month's energy, and then we just kind of, kind of connect and look at some things that maybe you might need some help with. Just a black screen, says Wendy. Are you serious? Anybody else got problems with the screen? Please let me know so I can fix it. Okay, let me know. Okay, I'm just going to start shuffling the cards, and I'm just going to wait until I've got some other messages up there saying that you can or can't see me, because if it's more than just Wendy, then it's obviously a problem my side that I will need to sort. Okay. So please, can you just put in the chat box, guys, if you can see more than a black screen or not. Well, Johnny's saying hi, so I think that means he can see me. Caroline's saying hello, so I think that means she can see me. So Wendy, I would try refreshing. Okay. All right. Yeah, everyone's saying hi now. Hi. Did it feel weird having that PowerPoint at the beginning? Yeah, maybe I should have said hello and not hidden in the first place. Oh, great. Okay. You're all good now. Excellent. All right, so we'll begin. Yeah. All right. So if you just like to take a nice deep breath in and tune into the cards and just ask that for the highest good of everyone that comes on this webinar, either replay or live, and for the highest good of the world and the ripples that we send out there in the world for this July, how is it we can best serve? Just let me know when you want me to stop shuffling by saying it telepathically. Okay, all right, so first card that we've got at the beginning of this month is the Ten of Swords, which I'm really not surprised about at all. If we look at that, I think this has been the build-up of the energy the last couple of weeks. It's been quite intense, don't you think? I mean, it's always intense, but there are more intense times than others. This has been a more intense time than another one, I think. So the next one is the King of Wands. So that's quite, at the moment, it's kind of showing us that from the first week, which is destruction energy, we then go into the creative energy of the second week with the King of Wands, but we'll talk more about that as we go on. The third week, we've got the Four of Cups. This is interesting because we've got a different element for each week at the moment. We've got the thoughts in the first week, we've got the action in the second week, we've got the feelings in the third week. Okay, and here's the first major arcana of July. It is the Lovers card here. Yeah. Okay. So the Lovers, it's the first major arcana, which means big playing stuff. And obviously, you know, we're talking about the theme of love as well, coming through quite strongly this month. And as Venus really properly goes retrograde on the 27th of July, I take it that's not going to be until the fourth week, which is what this is about. So it looks like there's a shift of energy, shall we say, big time in the fourth week. This is nice because this is the general card, And this is beautiful. This is the 9 of Pentacles. And this is exactly like Inanna when she comes above ground after her underground initiation. Yeah. It's where she's got her value. So she doesn't need to shield herself at all. So this is the 9 of Pentacles to me is very much a card of like, I've done it. I've learned how to treat myself really well and value myself really well, which is the complete journey of Venus retrograde. So I'm really pleased to see this. And especially as it's in the start of it as well, because, you know, the actual process of Venus retrograde is about learning that. So the fact that this has come up at the start is really good, may show that we're evolving after all. Okay, so let's have a look and see the next deck, because I work with 3 decks, so we have 3 cards for each week, and I do different decks because sometimes the same cards come up in the same place. So the first deck that I've been working with is the Legacy of the Divine, and this one is the Tower of Dreams. They're both by Chiro Marchetti. Okay, so if you would just like to send your thoughts up. Okay, tune into the cards and telepathically just send over when you're ready to stop. Okay, so far the first week is pretty swordy. Yeah, we've got the 10 of Swords and the 4 of Swords. I'll speak about that more later. Just painting the picture so far. Okay. The second week is pretty courty. What I mean by that is you've got the King of Wands and the Knight of Wands. Now then, yeah, court cards, when they come up like that, that can show that it's really busy and there's lots of people kind of in your space. So that's something we'll look at a little bit more. The third week is very cuppy. Can you believe this? Swords, Courts and Cups. Okay, I wonder if this is going to continue. So this is the emotional reflection. And interestingly enough, you've got the 9 of Cups. To me, very similar to the 9 of Coins. They're both about self-love and value and worth. So that with Venus retrograde coming up is really nice and good to see. It almost feels like we're going through the Venus retrograde darkness now. I think this pre-build up to the Venus retrograde and the post of the Mercury retrograde, so the shadow period of the Mercury retrograde and how that's blending with the pre-build up of the Venus retrograde has really been massively quite intense. So it feels to me like we could be learning a lot the painful way quite intensely at the moment, and therefore, you know, really deciding to do things differently. Let's have a look and see this. Okay, so the fourth week we've got the Lovers and the Palace of Cups, which is basically the Palace of Love. So that's a unique card to this deck, and it basically does mean about going right to the heart of the matter. So again, it's like another major arcana. So we've really got the cards pairing up well at the moment and working well with each other. So for the general, we don't have another pentacle, we have another wand. We have a wand card, sorry. Yeah, we do have another wand in here as well. We have the King of Wands. What's wrong with me today? So basically what you've got here is the 9 and the 8, but they're both yang cards. They're both external cards. So it is showing that there is this energy of knowing who we are, going out there into the world, and that really being activated by this passage or this journey. Okay, so let's work with the last one. Okay, thank you. Okay. So the last card for the first week is the 4 of Wands. basically, this is showing that we are having to strip away our defensiveness in the Ten of Swords. That we've got to a point now where we have to, in a way, be vulnerable and like say, I can't do this anymore. You know, whatever is your own personal struggle, whatever you are really personally struggling with, it's time to give it up. It's time to admit it. It's time to admit the weaknesses and kind of go, I can't do this. You know, I'm just not able to. And I'm just really, take the pressure off of yourself in a way where people can step up or step forward and meet you really where you are. Because I think a lot of us are feeling exhaustion. If we look like this, I mean, this has been my fortnight. That's why I think some of you have been a bit aware of the craziness around my business at the moment, like getting emails you shouldn't have been getting, problems with the webinars, and the other stuff that's been happening is all incredibly intense. And it's just this sense of everything like this vice grip going on that's just squeezing everything out and making sure that, you know, anything that's not serving or anything that's not working is really being weeded out. And so this seems to be the energy that seems to be around presently right now. And it's exhausting. You know, it's just like you can only do so much. There's only, you know, as a separate being, as a separate entity, there's only so far you can go. And it's about allowing people in to help you with where you are, which is this Four of Wands card, which is actually called participation in the Osho Zen deck. This is about allowing people in to help you. You can either lose consciousness in this Four of Swords and just be like falling off of the, you know, the conscious trip completely and doing things to numb yourself and to get unconscious. But, you know, that's just going to be temporary. You're going to have to wake up again, and the Ten of Swords is going to start all over again. So this here is basically talking about the way through is participation. Bang on again for Venus retrograde. It's asking you to be brave enough to open up, to let the shields down, you know, to let the defenses down, and to just be in that place where you're just like real. And you're just like, this is me. I might not be all of what you thought I was. And, you know, I'm real. And then you get these kind of real connections and you can get that real help, but not until you've managed to do that, which again ties in so much with the Venus retrograde story that we've been looking at. Okay, so let's move on to week 2. Interesting. So I wish I had more hands really, because this story goes on, right? So there you've got the participation energy, yeah? Allowing the people in, and then there's the people here in the second week. They've made an appearance, right? But still, we've got the outsider card going on here. So there's still something to shift. There's still, if we look at the story of Inanna, when she went down to the underworld, she actually had several initiations. First of all, she had to remove her crown, then she had to remove her orb, then her scepter, then her ring. I don't think that was the right order there, but basically you catch my drift. It's not a case of just like, okay, I'm going to let everybody in. It's like a case of, okay, I've dropped one layer. And then, whoa, here comes another layer. So it may well be that in the second week, people trigger you around you feeling like you're an outsider. So it might be that you've done your first initiation and you've been like quite real and people have stepped forward. There's some sense of collaboration. And then there could be a backtrack or something. And then you'd be like, see, I knew it. I should never have let down my defenses in the first place. Bang, up go your defenses. Bang, there's your outsider energy. Even Inanna gets stuck, but she gets stuck at the very last 7th gate where she has to completely disrobe and be completely naked. And she just like proclaims, but I'm a queen, which again is a very Leo thing to do. So that energy in this Venus retrograde would be very strong. But she gets through it. yeah, because she's left there. It's like, well, what's going to happen then if she doesn't push through that? She's just going to stay in the underworld. She can't go back. The only way forward is to actually disrobe. So just be aware that that may well happen in the second week. You might get triggered that way, and the walls might go up, and it's just the next initiation to get to that deeper level of being okay, you know, and finding that inner strength. So let's see how we cope with that, shall we? Ooh. Okay. 4 of Cups. So this shows reflection. This shows, can be a bit of isolation. Might be that, you know, it's just like so many people around you in the second week and they've triggered so many things that it's like, I just need to step back and I just need some time out to reflect on this. And then this is beautiful. This here shows some aha moments. And this aha moments is basically showing, yeah, I am in this place now where I'm getting it. So something that you weren't getting, as you can see, this cup here, not quite getting, not quite landing, not only lands, but brings 5 others with them. So it's like this real kind of like, this is where I'm not treating myself very well. And this is what I need to do for myself in order to feel better. It's very deep because we've got the moon card here. So all of these cards are water, and water are all emotions. So it's basically very, very emotional in this third week. But it feels like, when I say very emotional, you might go to that place where you're like, oh no, and imagining all these emotional dramas, when really what this is saying is there's this more deep, it's more like we're going deep into the heart of who we are and really kind of going, I get it. It's like really listening to ourselves with the intuition here with the moon. It's bringing up this real listening to ourselves. It is the journey of the underworld. I'm so surprised not to see this. I mean, to see this, not to see this. When we're in the underworld, we don't really see, we feel. So basically, this is just saying that you are in this zone. In the third week, we are likely to be in the underworld together, in the darkness together, processing the information that's been going on and kind of really getting deeper into the heart of who we are. And this doesn't mean that we're kind of in bed crying our eyes out. It might mean that, but just feel like, even if that is the case, it's just a very slight moment. It feels like the rewards that come from that are amazing, that come from this week, this third week of this month, feel huge. I think there was a saying I read the other day which said, you know, the amount of pain, the feeling of pain is forgotten about when we actually see the benefits of the outside of that journey. So I think there's a film that says one day this pain will be useful to you. And this actually feels to me like I've been waiting for this month to kick in, and I've been welcoming in the Cancerian energy, for instance. So Gemini, which ruled last month, incredible month. It really, really was fast, hectic, changeable. And I really enjoyed it, but it's also been too intense. And I've been like wishing for the Cancerian energy to come in, which is strange, I will admit, because when we did the tarot course, I did a tarot course this year and took a group of people through living the cards. When we got to Cups, which Cancer rules, so many of us were sick. And it was like, oh my goodness, I never really put 2 and 2 together. I never really saw the cards as making people sick, you know, or the cups as making people sick. But if you think about it, actually, that kind of emotional energy and, you know, what you put in, what you consume and all of that, there was an overload of that. So it feels like there's been an overload of the air energy in Gemini, which in a way is more intense. I think it's like, it's like, I'm surprised I've got any hair left. Okay, it's a little bit of a bush, but this is a representation of what the last 2 weeks have been like. So I've been welcoming on the Cancerian energy, even though last time I worked with that energy, I was really very sick for 2 weeks. So that just goes to show, like, you know, the need for balance in things is really, 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 really very, very important. Yet when we look at the cards at the moment, it's quite intense on one element, and then it moves into an intensity on another element, and then an intensity on another element. So with this third week, it's like going deep into the heart of the emotions. There could be a lot of tears. You could be feeling sick. There could just be this whole purging. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be that way. It could just be that you're feeling amazingly intuitive and amazingly connected to people after that initial, oh gosh, I've got stuck at this second initiation of the outsider. Yeah. Then there's this basic kind of, I'm moving through that again. And I'm allowed to be really vulnerable. In fact, bring it on. I'm in the place now where I am going deep, deep, deep into my heart of my vulnerability. And I'm just really pleased to see this, because if this wasn't here, then it would be showing us that we're not really embracing the Venus retrograde journey. But with this here, this shows me that we're really getting it. We're really getting to the heart of the matter, and we're really processing it. So that's really great to see. Okay, so let's see the third card. Okay, so the Lovers, the Palace of Cups, and the Master. Wow. Okay, the Master is an amazing card. It's unique, should I say, to the Osho Zen cards. And I'm going to have to explain it a little bit to you. So most of you are au fait with the tarot, but for those of you that aren't, the tarot has 2 decks. It has a major arcana and a minor arcana, and the major arcana represents our spiritual steps throughout life that everybody takes. It's the basic evolution. Okay, so we go around those 22 steps again and again and again and again, and it's just this repetitive cycle. It's a bit like samsara. Okay. So we're going round and round and round and round and round and round and round. And that's why the tarot is predictive. Yeah, because it goes round. So it can predict. However, that's not the purpose of it. The purpose is that we're only supposed to go round, and we at every point that we go around, we have an opportunity to get off the wheel by becoming conscious. Okay. There's no card for that in any other deck except the Osho Zen deck. And that is the Master. It's basically showing, ding, we've got it. We're not in our repetitive patterning anymore. Wow, how fabulous is that? And this is all to do with the Venus retrograde. If you look here, we've got the Lovers. Yeah, and we've got the Palace of Cups and the Master. Basically, this shows that this could be the 4th week in July, could be the end of codependence as we know it. I mean, wouldn't that be fantastic? That's the basic message in this. And, you know, I'm not being naive. I don't think it's going to be that black and white, but it does show that there's some real health around our hearts and around our self-love and interdependence and things like that going on this month, which is fab to see. Okay, so let's look at the last one. Okay, so we have the 10 of Pentacles with the 8 of Wands and Adventure. Yeah, so this is basically showing that adventure of, it's almost like we're coming out of the underworld there, aren't we? We're going into our new lives, and these new lives are with knowing who we are, so feeling happy, feeling value in ourselves and not needing it from anyone else, and shining our light out there in the world with happiness and positivity and energy as well, because it can be very draining, can't it, when we're in connections where we don't feel like it's working, you know, because they're triggering our stuff. And it's like, okay, if we can actually get through our stuff, then it's not really going to be draining. And the amount of energy then that you will have for your own creativity in the world and your own creative path, it's amazing. It's a whole new adventure. So that basically there is the tarot side, but we need to look at the astrological side as well. So let's just go back to the PowerPoint. So hopefully you can see this, guys. And that says week 2. So let's go to previous. So we start July with a full moon in Capricorn. Okay, so again, quite an intense beginning happening this week. The spotlight will be very much on the underworld. So it's almost as if the moon is kind of shining the way to our journey. It's like showing us the way into the underworld, because Capricorn is the underworld. Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. And if you listen to the word Saturn, it's Satan. Yeah. So it's basically, there's the moon shining really full on at the place where you know that you need to go in order to work through whatever stuff needs to be worked through to be rising again, fresh and born and cleansed and completely free of any of those darker sides. Now that's interesting, isn't it? It's like completely free of any of those darker sides of ourselves. In a way, it's more like accepting those darker sides of ourselves or being stronger with them. It's not necessarily about leaving them behind, and it's definitely not about acting them out. So it's about coming into that place of balance through that underworld journey. All right. So that's what you have in the first week, which kind of ties in with all the swords that we had, if you remember. And it's kind of like, can't do it anymore. I'm just a human. I'm just a human going on a journey into the underworld. Are you coming with me? Yes, it looks like I am. It looks like all of us are. And there's the participation card that we ended with. So if we go into week 2, we've got Mercury entering Cancer, which is really interesting because we're not really seeing that in the week 2 cards. But we are seeing that in the week 3 cards, because in the week 2 cards, we still have the Knight of Coins, which is the earthy element of the underworld, the King of Wands, which is the bravery, and the Outsider, which is the need to work through the fear of going into the underworld. So it feels like that Capricorn full moon and preparing our journey kind of like lasts for the first 2 weeks or so. Mercury entering Cancer shows that internal communication really starting to kick off from the 8th of July though. But we're really seeing that pictured very strongly in the 3rd week. So it may just take some time for that to kind of come through. So just think, yeah, that is the 3rd week. Okay, previous. So the 3rd week, we've got a new moon in Cancer. Aha! And we've got Venus entering Virgo. So that's probably why, you know, if we look at the 3rd week, I will just basically stop this so I can show you. So in the 3rd week, we had the moon card, yeah? And all of these are water, and they're basically very Cancerian in their nature. So the new moon in Cancer in this 3rd week is also really, really, really strong and has been very much pictured by these cards. So that's all the water element, it's all the emotion element that we were talking about here in the 3rd week, because the moon rules Cancer and the moon is emotional. You know, it really is in the height of that energy. But like I say, it's a fantastic week for getting to the depth of everything, of how you work internally. So the more internal work you can do that week, the better. Okay. So let's move on to the 4th week. Now for, oh, sorry, I need to screen share with you. Okay. Hopefully you can see this now. Sorry, I'm flipping around a bit. There we go. So the 4th week is actually really busy, which is interesting because the last 2 months, there's been hardly much going on in the 4th week. But not for July. If you can see this, Sun enters Leo on the 23rd. So that can give us that real spotlight on the heart again, but on a more external way rather than an internal way. And Mercury is entering Leo. Okay, so again, externalizing the communication from the heart. So we're coming up out of the underworld by the looks of things, even though Venus hasn't actually gone retrograde, interestingly enough. Isn't that fascinating? It feels like we're doing the journey beforehand somehow. So the Venus retrograde actually starts on July the 25th, and Uranus also goes retrograde. So it'll probably retrograde back into Aries. So there's a lot of internal passions going on there. July the 31st, we have the full moon in Aquarius. So the full moon then will be lighting the way around evolution and going forward. And July the 31st, Venus retrograde enters Leo. So, you know, that there is a deepening, I think. It's almost as if we are expanding and we're widening. It's like a sense of the more that we go deep internally, the more we're going externally. It almost feels like there's an expansion throughout the whole core of ourselves in the 4th week, which makes sense again with where we were with the cards. If you remember here, we had the Lovers, and the Lovers is very dual. It's very, you know, the two polar opposites. And we have this very, very internal card, actually, with the Palace of Cups. And then we have this, well, I've expanded so much. I've come off the wheel of samsara and I've gone into enlightenment. So again, that kind of ties in very much with the astrology. But I love this general card at the end as well, which seems to be saying we find our gifts, we find our purpose, we find our values, and we feel excited about our onwards journey. So yeah, that feels cool, doesn't it? And I would like to have your questions now, guys. So if you could put whatever you want to ask in the chat box, that would be fab. Whether that is just about Venus retrograde in general, if it's a question about your own psychic development, you know, it doesn't have to be for a reading. You can pick my brains practically as well. Of course, I'm here to also channel anything that comes through for you. So we've done the astrology and we've done the tarot side of things. And I tend to channel on the questions that you send in now. So I'm just waiting for them to come in. And I might use the cards, but this is more the channeling side of it. Okay. So I'm just going to tune in and just reflect. Whilst I wait for your comments to come through, your questions. Oh, wow. Okay, so I've got a question here which says, for the first time in years, I've got a crush on somebody. I might be wrong, but I think the feeling is mutual. What can you tell me about this? Thank you. First of all, it's fantastic. It's something to celebrate that for the first time in years, you are feeling this way, because it shows that there's an opening, there's something stirring, there's something going on in your heart. It feels as if that's the key to the process, is about having that experience, okay, and honoring and valuing that experience, and that it shows you what is possible, and it shows you how life is growing and changing and forming for you. So it's very much the feeling that I'm getting is a sense of honor that, really honor that, and be like, wow, this is really, really, really strong, really like amazing, and I'm feeling really alive, and I'm feeling magical, and I'm feeling this, and I'm feeling that. This is the process of your Venus retrograde. It's about opening up. It's about taking those shields off and opening up. In order to do that, it's like the attachment to what somebody else is, to getting something back is the issue. And so it's like that could stop or could put the shields on the heart, with Inanna and the initiations and the going into the underworld. Whereas if you can be in that place of honoring what has happened for you and being like, wow, and just getting past the fact that it matters whether they do or whether they don't, then that's where you'll really have gone through that process of the underworld and come through to the other side. Now, as I'm talking, there's a book on the shelf just in front of me that just keeps pulling my eyes back. So if I've been taking my eyes off the screen, that is why. So I'm really going to, I really feel like it's for you, and that this is part of your healing your heart wound in your Venus retrograde energy. And so maybe give it a go. Maybe get the book and work with that. And as you work with that, then everything will kind of move forward in the way that it's meant to, in that expansive, open way, rather than that pushing way that we were talking about with the difference of our energies, because that's what this Venus retrograde is about. Becoming really aware of when we're pushing and being really aware of when we're receiving. So it feels like what's happened is this sense of an opening for you for the underworld, but in a really great way. This is a fantastic thing that's happened for you. But to go from I'm feeling this way, do they feel that way, is like you're skipping out that healing that would make that happen anyway. So that's why I'm not concentrating on what they are feeling. And I did send a newsletter out saying that, the type of questions, I think there was one an hour before this webinar, and saying like, if I felt like any of the questions were, not serving your heart's journey on the Venus retrograde, and I listed the type of questions that I felt would be an issue, and then I'd say that I would change them. That's exactly what I've just done now, but feel free to ask them, because it's great for me to know where you are, and I may just answer them in a slightly different way, because I have to basically work out what I feel is empowering or not, and just deliver the empowering side of it. Anyway, this book, I'll show it. The book is Women Who Love Too Much. Very famous book. Not that I've read it. So many books that I'd like to read. I'd love to read it. I think I could have really done with reading that. Even now, actually, I could still really do with reading it. It's just my life is so busy creating that I never really... Interesting that, isn't it? I'm getting little light bulb moments. I'm so busy creating, I'm so busy pushing that I won't receive. Okay, maybe I need to read it with you. All right, so I hope that is useful. And I haven't said your name, just in case you wanted it to be private. So I'm not going to say anybody's name. I don't really know what is going on in the technological world at the moment because it's all been completely crazy. So just to safeguard, I'm not going to say anybody's name, even though your messages might be public. Okay. All right. So let's see. I've recently been spending a lot of time with a good friend and there are signals, but I'm not sure if I'm misreading them. Also, a prominent ex has been in touch for no apparent reason. So I was wondering, is there any love interest on the horizon and do I know this person? Okay, so yeah, again, the newsletter that I sent out just before the webinar. Venus retrograde is a process of internalization. It's about any retrograde is internalization. It's about the love in ourselves. Whoever is appearing in your life now is a strong trigger for your internal love journey, which basically means that it's probably not going to be a walk in the park. It's going to be a walk in the underground, not as in the underground. Yeah, you're all Londoners. Most of you are on the call. A walk in the underground doesn't sound very pleasant, does it? But what I meant to say is the underworld, you know? So it's a little bit more magical, there's a little bit more kind of twists and turns. And you're on a journey and you're on an adventure, and these people are prominent. Whoever is turning up in your life is prominent. They are going to take you probably into your deepest heart of the matter, your wounds where you're triggered because you don't feel lovable. Yeah, that if they're coming into your life in this time, it's a generalization, but that is really what is happening here, is a sense of that happening. Now, that could be because you're in a relationship with them. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that somebody rises that stuff up in you. Okay. I do feel that there is an opening around both of you. Yeah, that your heart energy is opening and that things are really shifting for you. When I say both of you, I mean the last two questions. You know, it really feels as if there's an opening and the heart energy there is expanding. But it feels like, and it's not a judgment because we all do it. We meet someone, we feel something, we want to know. And I'm not saying don't pursue it. I'm saying the journey is about releasing your defenses, stripping yourself down to your bare minimum and keeping on going through it bravely without any attachment to the journey, just doing the journey and knowing that you do that and whatever happens, you're still surviving. Yeah, that's really the journey here. But I don't think it's one to be rushed in either of your cases, if I'm honest. However, that's really for you guys to feel out, because the intuition is really what this is about. It's really about what this journey is. And, you know, intuition is blocked by outside advice, even from readers. Intuition is blocked by planning things, thinking things, or rushing things. So it's really about allowing yourself to really come into your own rhythm. And that's going to be really powerful according to the third week here. So, you know, the third week feels like a really, you might be triggered this week. You might be triggered the second week of July. The third week, it feels like the more that you can strip down and be internal, the kind of more the energy shifts from there on into an amazing space. So just work with the rhythms of it all and know what the work is that you have to do, that hopefully that this webinar has really helped you with. And just embrace that. It's an internalization. So I'm not really going to be answering externalization messages, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so this looks like an internalization question. Okay, just so you can see what I mean by the difference in the questions. Why do I keep attracting people who violate my boundaries, have an intrusive energy, tell me how I feel or how it is, disrespecting my property or values or boundaries? I've been feeling much stronger and clearer in myself, and I do stand up for myself, but they violate regardless. Okay, so it sounds to me then that you've been going from a shift, yeah, of maybe feeling like a doormat, and now you're standing up for yourself, and it still happens, but it's like you're a pendulum. It's like we all are. We go from one extreme to the other, and so we still attract that continuum, and then finally we get to the balance. Okay, so it feels as if there's a push from you with this energy. It feels like there's this raw or this pushing kind of energy, which is what I was talking about earlier. When that happens, we don't make things easy for ourselves. We attract that harsh energy to ourselves because we're trying so hard. So the fact that you're saying you stand up for yourself and they violate regardless tells me that you're feeling like you're trying so hard and it's not happening. But that is exactly the key right there. The fact that you're feeling that you have to try when you don't, you just stop. Yeah, it's like you just basically know your boundaries, don't need to stand up for yourself, don't need to explain, don't need to justify. Just look at where you're putting your energy and whether that's correct for you or not correct for you. End of. That's got a calmness, that's got the strength, you know, like the Leo, the strength card. It's like a quietness and a stillness, and it's just a knowing that you know your boundaries, and so you don't have to defend them. It just is. You know it's your property, you know it's your space, you know it's your energy, and you know that you direct that, and that is it, really. So it's about taking the energy out or taking the energy back rather than coming to the forefront and having to defend or push, if that makes sense. I hope you find that useful, Hadley. Thank you. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to say people's names, but that feels really disconnected in me. So I'm finding it difficult not to say people's names. So if you really want to make sure that I don't say your name, put a non at the beginning of your question. Okay, so again, I really wanted to say your name, but I'm trying hard not to. It has been an intense period already, showing what isn't working in my life. So much emotion coming up. I would like to ask, what is the purpose of my relationship and how can we move forward for the highest good of all involved? Okay, so another internal question, because it's like, what's the purpose and how do we move forward? All I'm seeing is a sense of play and a sense of connection. And the message that is coming through is why does everything have to have a purpose? What is purpose? Maybe the purpose of being on the planet is actually just to have a nice time sometimes. Purpose is a multifaceted thing, and your purpose now, today, at this moment, is different from your purpose tomorrow, your purpose this evening, your purpose when you come off this webinar. It has changed. So your purpose is maybe not to have a purpose in this relationship. We are not saying it's purposelessness. We are saying its purpose is not to have a purpose at this moment in time, is to embrace that infinite space of being, of connecting, of really getting to know each other, of exploration. There is a lot of pushing forward energy in this world at this moment in time. We are, if we had headaches as guides, we'd be having a headache. You guys must be having so many headaches. We are so hung up on purpose at the moment in this world. And, you know, we are now getting to a place of like, well, maybe the purpose is just to not have a purpose. And this is only a gear change of the purpose. We're not saying that's always the case. We are saying that there is a gear change at this present moment on the planet, because there is so much rushing forward to the next thing, the next purpose, the next place, the next person, the next. Enjoy. Okay, he's gone. Enjoy it. That's the purpose. On a psychic level, I was seeing travel, and I kept seeing you sat in an allotment, which of course defies, because unless you've got some traveling allotment company, I'm not quite sure how that would work. But basically, it was like, that is far down the line, you know, that and it was very much about just don't rush this moment with each other, because it's really pure, really free, and really beautiful. Okay, thank you. Okay, 8 years ago, I was going through a separation from my husband. You said that this time could be similar. However, for me, I'm hoping it's actually going to be the opposite, because I know I've been wary to go forward. Is this going to be the kick up the backside? I need to go out and find love. Absolutely. You know, when I say it could be similar, I just mean on an internal level. So, you know, I was breaking up with my long-term boyfriend 8 years ago. I don't think that I'm going to be breaking up with my long-term husband. You know, yes, there's an intense time going on for us. Do I believe that we're going to be breaking up? No, not for a second. So it's never that literal and never that black and white. So I'm really glad that you kind of pointed that out as well, because there might be other people that, you know, need that clarification as well. It's an internalization. The journey internally is more what I'm talking about. So whatever your journey was internally when you were going through that breakup, what was it you learned? What was it that happened for you then on that internal journey? That's really what the second opportunity is coming round for now. So for me, it was a case of, in a way, it was the words that come through maybe aren't words that I can use, but has anybody heard of John Parkin? And you know, basically what happened for me was, it was the, you know, he's done something called the bucket way, you know, and that's what it was like for me 8 years ago. It was like poof, all gone, everything gone in a sense. So there was this kind of like space and this freedom, and you know, it may well be that that is what happened for you. And yes, okay, that was an externalization, but it was internally, it was me giving myself the permission to just stop. Yeah. So what did you give yourself the permission to do, basically? That's the thing to really ask. And when you say, is this going to be the kick up the backside, I need to go out and find love? No, it's an internalization. It's not an externalization. It's the work we do inside, which means that the love can come to us. Yeah, that's what that's about. Okay, I hope that you find that useful. So another external question here, long distance relationship. I am in a long distance relationship and was wondering if we're going to be together, as I feel that he is the one. Thank you. Again, I'm not doing externalized predictive, kind of answers or things. I tend to stay away from that anyway, as you probably know, but I really did emphasize that on the email that I sent out before about the type of questions. So all I would say is that it feels like you've got a beautiful, beautiful connection. What makes you feel like you're not together? I know that what you meant is you mean physically together. I have to kind of speak from what is coming through here. And it's like, obviously, guides, spirits see things differently, because they're not really in the body. And we have this illusion of being in the body. And of course, it's real as well. We are in the body, and we kind of want that connection, particularly in a relationship. We want that person. We want to be with them. We want to be able to, connect with them in the body. So I understand what you're saying, but I think what the message is coming through is like a sense of the question. Now, there can be really, the guidance that's coming through, it can sound really abrupt. But the message that's coming through is, why did you ask this question? Because it feels to me as if what they're doing by saying that is they're holding the mirror up and saying, do you really need to ask that question? Because they're saying that you don't. And I don't mean it in a way that you've wasted anything or that you shouldn't have asked that question. I'm just trying to get the message across that they're saying that just trust. And you don't even need to trust. You know it already. You know this connection. You know this feeling. Yes. And it's just as tangible as if you were together in body. So kind of what are you waiting for? I mean, obviously, everything has its own inner timing. Every process has its own divine timing. And so when we push against that, it feels hard. So this journey for you is about maybe working through the stuff inside, which isn't allowing it to happen in terms of you being together in body yet. I hope that you find that useful. Thank you. Now, that's an interesting question that has just come up. The heart is open, but not my mind. Do you have any guidance as how to get past the cynicism? Yeah, the first feeling there is I'm a bit dumbfounded, really, because cynicism is judgment, okay? And nothing takes you out of the heart quicker than judgment, okay? The minute that you're judging somebody, you're out of the heart. So this tells me that the way forward is actually to release the judgments that even that your heart is open, because to me, it's like saying, I'm trying to find a kind of example. So my heart is open, but my mind isn't. And the cynicism is the problem. So cynicism is judgment. So if you're judging, then your heart isn't open. Judgment happens is as a shield, as a block to the heart. So in order to get past that, it's just that right there. It's just that kind of remembering that judgment is a block to your heart. So your heart isn't open all the time, that you are in that place of cynicism. Yeah, it's not open. Do you understand what I'm saying there? I'd love to get some feedback on that. But that's just what struck me right there. The two and two, like my heart is open but my mind isn't, doesn't add up to me. It's like if your heart is open, your mind will be open. Okay, I hope that is useful. Let me know. Okay, so somebody else has got another question, and I'm just not saying your name because I've had so many technical issues. I want to try and protect anybody from any confidentiality issues, although they may be public messages. I'm just being extra safe. So this says, I have a similar question. Cynicism as well as apathy about internalizing what I feel, accepting the dark and the shadow, as you mentioned. How do I blast these blocks? This has been a great webinar. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much for saying that. I'm trying to understand your question, so bear with me. So you're feeling the cynicism and apathy about accepting the dark? Yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely. How do you blast those blocks? I don't think you do. I think that's the thing there. In this society, you know, we're so not comfortable, are we really, with things like if we see something that we don't like there, we must change it. And sometimes it's about becoming comfortable with it or breathing it in or accepting it, and then it changes. So I guess you're saying you understand that from your question. That's kind of what I'm getting there, and you're wanting to blast through the resistance. But my mind is going to the fifth element. I don't know if you've seen the fifth element. So if I remember correctly, there was this big black entity thing that was basically going to be the end of the world. And the government kept blasting it. And as they kept blasting it, it just regrouped. This darkness just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So Bruce Willis and whoever the woman actress was, I can't remember, but she was the alien who basically was, her purpose was to save Earth. And that was quite, I think, obvious, whereas Bruce wasn't very aware that that's what his purpose was. And they were the equivalent of today's twin flames, but he was in fear of love because he'd been hurt. And she was very open, so open. She was just like completely vulnerable, like she'd been totally stripped down because she wasn't used to Earth and the kind of things that it does to us in that sense. And then she saw the footage of the Second World War, and basically that really, that stopped her from her tracks. She found it so debilitating. She was basically dying from what she'd seen of the Second World War and all the pain that had caused. And basically that's when he finally got the message that he needed to release his fear around love and help her and come together in love and open that heart. And then the light comes through and shoots through the darkness. And whereas the government was spending millions on things, and just it was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So basically what I'm saying here is I'm picking up on the word blast. And obviously it depends what you blast it with. You could blast it with love. Yeah, but I think the fact that you're feeling apathetic is because of this feeling like you've got to blast, and that there's something here about giving that up and just being like, okay, it's so, you know, I don't actually have to do anything. I just need to allow, and I just need to receive, and I just need to receive, if that's the case, this darkness, in a sense, that's where your strength is, because there's so much fear around darkness. Society has a whole kind of thing about it. We spend all our time trying to go around the outside of it and being afraid of going right into the middle of it. Whereas if we can just be in that place where it's like, okay, I know that I am a strong enough being because I have that heart and I have that light. Yeah. So in a way, it's just a similar message as before, in terms of like when you're in that space and you just know that you don't need to do anything, you don't need to prove anything to anyone, you don't need to justify, you don't need to explain, you just hold that space. Yeah. So white light is the most powerful energy that I have seen. I've worked with people who have been possessed, and I've seen at the time where I've imagined that white light reaching them, they have actually started to projectile vomit. And so I have actually seen the tangible effects of visualizing white light. So blasting things, forcing things, pushing things, it just causes disconnection and a regrouping of the darkness and the hardness. It makes everything harder. So it's like, okay, you feel that? Okay, great, you feel it. And yeah, sometimes there are times in our life about it's appropriate to kind of feel it and do it anyway, a bit like Susan Jeffers says, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. I'm actually a really avid advocate for that as well. So it's just on an internal level at the moment with the Venus retrograde. It's all about self-love. Yeah. So it's all about being gentler, and it's all about stripping away and being willing to go into the darkness. And it's not going to be easy, is it? There's going to be those resistances. There's going to be those initiations, those 7 gates to get there. And, it's just like a case of maybe sitting there with it, like Inanna does. At times she gets stuck, but she just sits there and realizes that she can't get out of the underworld. The only way is through it. Okay, I hope you find that useful. Thank you. So there's only 10 minutes left, so be aware. You can send your questions in, but I might not get through them all. Okay. So this says, from I won't say, I would like to know what I need to learn from my relationship with the last 2 men I fell in love with. It's an internal question, which is a great question. I don't feel like they were giving you commitment. The word commitment is stepping through. I don't feel like they were necessarily unfaithful. I just feel as if they'd say things and then they wouldn't really deliver and getting the words but not the actions so much. So there may be something here around the commitment side of things, yeah? In terms of how committed are you to you, and is there anything there that you've got an energy leakage with around that? Is there anything that is an energy leakage going on for you there? Okay, so if there is, have a look at that. It's important that we are open and we have that kind of interdependence, but it's the dance, isn't it, of the codependence, the independence, the interdependence, which is such a fine tuning throughout all of our lives. All of our lives. So I really feel like it's something along those lines, and I hope that you find that useful. Okay, so I've got some feedback about the question about the boundaries, which says that it's not resonating because they feel they know their boundaries and I'm calm with them. Didn't feel I had to defend myself in any way, which somehow invited them to violate. Then obviously the push comes back because all my trauma is triggered. Okay, so if we go back to that question, and it's saying, why do I keep attracting people who violate my boundaries, have an intrusive energy, tell me how I feel or how it is, disrespecting my property, my values, or my boundaries? I've been feeling much stronger and clearer in myself, and I do stand up for myself, but they violate regardless. It does tell me that, you know, it's not been completely learned for you yet. That is the bottom line. So, you know, we can have good judgments that block us just as much as bad judgments. I used to have this judgment about myself that I was really good at being transparent. And I got stuck with that label somehow. People started seeing me as that label. And then all of a sudden, I realized that I wasn't there was no movement, there was no progression on my level of transparency, you know. So you may well be working through this, which you are, because you're going from one side of the pendulum to the other side of the pendulum. But there is also, it's not over yet. And there is this sense here, like, of standing up for oneself rather than kind of being like, okay, all right, so there's more to do here. And actually, does it matter? Obviously, it matters if they're violating your property, and obviously it matters if they're violating your values. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes people are in our space for a reason. So, okay, sometimes you have to share your home with people, and they might even be family members, for instance. So I know this isn't your situation, but I'm using it as an example that you can't just basically throw out. Like, so what I'm saying to you is, if you're feeling that way, then stop putting your energy into them. But there are sometimes situations where you can't even do that. And so what is really coming up is like, why is this triggering you? Why is it triggering you? What is it that is doing that? I've been in that situation, which is why I've used it as an example, and have been massively triggered for years. It showed me how much unhealed stuff I had in myself. And it showed me that the only reason I was reacting was because it was bringing that stuff up. Now I'm in a place where if any of that stuff happens, I'm so much calmer. It's not even a deal. It's not even a big deal to me. The fact that you're asking the question tells me that you aren't at that place. That's nothing psychic. So in terms of resonating, it's more common sense. It's more, that's the way that is. And it's up to you whether you take that on board or not. But sometimes good judgments just stop us at a certain level, and it's like having to get through the next level of the initiation. Okay. I hope that is useful. It's up to you. Okay. Okay, so we're getting a few thanks. Thank you. Lots to think about. Okay, excellent. And yeah, lovely that you're getting your thanks. So the past 2 weeks have been really hard and emotional. Somebody else is sharing. Yeah, they really have, haven't they? Thank you once again. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And there's still an offer of healing your heart wound going on. So if you do feel that you need a bit more than what we can do in a webinar, you know, so sometimes it can just bring up stuff and it's just like a minute or two long, and there needs to be more working through for more understanding to happen. So there is, if that's happening, by all means, do look at the replay link that I will send out for you, just because it will have an application there for you to have a deeper one-to-one with me if that's what you feel like you would like to do. All right, and I wish you all the best with going forward through the Venus retrograde, being willing to go right into, you know, releasing all the armor and going right into the heart of our vulnerability and actually going, oh yeah, okay, so now that's where the real strength is. And that means that I can really just be valuing myself, and it doesn't matter what happens on the outside. Wish you well with it all, and hopefully speak and connect with you soon. Take care. Thanks for joining me. Bye.